this. Agora Digitalis, the platform for students and researchers and artists to share their work and their research. Live from the Art University in Linz. I'm happy to more people. Here on the sofa, Indiara, Smirna, Carla, Iosune, all from interface cultures. And as they are totally self-sufficient, I will give the microphone to them. And only one last thing, if people online have questions, please use the link from the website to get me the questions for Coco Lands. So, Smirna, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So, welcome to all our audiences online and offline. Thank you for coming. And first, to say that my name is Smirna Kulenović. I'm an artist that is originally from Bosnia, but right now I'm studying in Linz as a part of Interface Cultures, and so are all of us here, Carla and Iosune in Indiara, and also Tiia, that is another team member that couldn't be here. She's right now in Finland, but hopefully she joins us with her video. CocoLens, if we have to say it in this very official way, is a growing digital archive of international media artists dealing with the isolation and all the consequences of the lockdowns during coronavirus. Our project started on March 15th, which marked the first day of the lockdown in Austria, since most of the artists involved in the project were originally based in Linz. But then, since the project grew, we also had more artists from 12 nationalities in the end, 20 artists that joined us from also not just Europe, but different continents, and we will talk about that more during our presentation. Just to explain a little bit this beginning of the project, because we think it's very interesting the way that it was formed as a reaction, actually as a spontaneous reaction that happened just on the first day of this idea that we will end up being in lockdowns all over the world. I had the luck or unluck, I'm not sure, to actually be in a remote island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean when all this crisis began. So I couldn't go back to study in Austria. I had to find a way to communicate online with my professors, with other students, with my friends and artists. And I was thinking about a format of how to keep inspiring each other and how to keep being creative and active during this process of the isolation or self-isolation as it was in other countries. So the idea for this project came where we were imagining each of us as a remote island, like floating in space in this planet that you can see, which turned into our web interface. Therefore, each of the artists represents this remote island and posts their diaries of isolation online, either every day or every week, depending on the rhythm that every person could manage doing. Basically, one of the biggest questions during the entire process was how to maintain this communication, how to maintain the inspiration to do this project day by day, since it's now running since March and it's open still for new contributors, which we have to say, and it's always remaining as an open call. Therefore, this project, the CocoLens, had to continue being not just published online, but organized online. And one of the people that were there in the moments that basically everything could fall apart if we didn't have a very strong leader was Carla, and I'm super happy that she joined the team in the beginning. And I think that she can explain us the best what were the biggest challenges actually of communication and inspiring the artists during all these months and all this process that happens online, basically.
Yes, so actually I joined as a contributing artist. I wanted to give it a try and to also start with a diary as a self-experiment and see what's the outcome in the end. And yeah, Smirna was actually, and Smirna and Indiara and Tiia, together with our other colleague Juan, immediately, and Matthias. I was impressed how quick they set up this whole project within 2 days. It felt like it, and it was already online somehow and ready to be used and to be filled. And I was so impressed by this, and immediately I was very attached to this whole concept and to this to this project. And also, so I immediately from the beginning on, I have to say, I was also so impressed by your commitment altogether. So in the past, I must say, didn't have this a lot. So yeah, and then it happened from time to time that, very quick, it was clear that Smirna is not very much available, so depending on her internet connection. And I felt it would be a pity to just kind of lose track, and then that's why I started to take over communication. But I have to say this was already done really well by you guys also. Indiara, who is managing the social media. So we also have a very nice Instagram account. So she was always also posting there. And so I think that this was really not a problem. And I mean, I was not alone doing this. So that's why I was motivated myself to jump into this project and kind of trying to take over the communication, then also to the other artists who were not in our team. So from the beginning. And so we had a lot of international artists, or we have a lot of international artists from actually 12 nationalities, in total 20 contributing artists, which means 10 artists, single artists, and 2 collectives, which is kind of impressive. And of course, and we were so motivated to still invite other artists. So yeah, in a way, it was not so difficult in the beginning to keep motivation, but maybe after 2 months or so, it was a little bit becoming more difficult, because mainly, I think, because of the situation in general, that we had to realize that this is going to be a long-term situation like this. So we all thought in the beginning, okay, this is gonna last for 1 month. So in the end, now Cocoland became a 6 months project, ongoing project. We could continue. I don't hope not actually forever, but at the moment it feels like so. Yeah. So it was always a mixture between one day super motivated, the other day like, oh my God, when is this ending, and so on. So.
And I think this is actually one of the key points in our project is this idea of dealing with uncertainty and unpredictability. As you say, since the first day we thought, okay, this is just like a temporary crisis, and it will be very good to document how we are transforming ourselves and our art practice through this. But now, since we see that it's been ongoing for more than 5 months and we don't know what's next, neither in Austria or other countries, we could imagine this project to continue more and more. But then it's also about, I think it will be a very valuable document in some point in the future, that I don't know also what will happen. But it could be this document of seeing how the transition takes place between the old normal and what is coming now, and what we would, I don't like this term new normal, but what is coming now and what we have to deal with as artists. So for me it also has this future value where maybe, okay, we are presenting this project as a part of the Kunstuniversität project in Ars Electronica this year, but maybe in 5 years it will still be valuable as an archive, basically, for researchers as well. And then that brings us to another question, which was probably the first one that we had to ask ourselves when we said, okay, let's do a format of a diary, which means this is not a finished artwork, this is something that is in process, this is a place for us to freely express our thoughts and ideas as artists, where basically we don't have to have this pressure of having this final product like perfected for the online world or for the online audiences, where also this term intimacy comes in question, since we are really letting someone not just enter our daily routine and daily life, but also to see this other side of being an artist, where you can see someone's work in progress, and that is something that usually people are very afraid to publish and to show something that's not so finalized. And this spontaneity also of reaction and also changing of direction within the process of a lot of artists was for me very inspiring to see that we were not afraid to say, okay, I was doing this diary in this format for 1 week, but then I'm gonna change it because I feel free to even again restart my entire thinking process and adapt to new situations. So of course, this is an open question for all of us, but for example, I think that you had a project that was dealing with this idea of shared intimacy in a very specific way. And I don't know, what was your impression of how your idea of a diary and intimacy changed through the process of creating the Walking Blues?
Well, should I talk about it now or later?
No, I mean, it was just basically about this idea of the diary itself, which was one of the first questions. And then later you can more...
I mean, so in my diary, I first had another concept, and then I ended up with these walking portraits, I call, because for me it was actually I didn't think about so much about intimacy in a way. First, it was more doing something active, being active, and being also interactive. So this is something what can be shared with others, and so. In my sense, I didn't first think about so much about intimacy. Maybe later, when these all questions came up. Okay, should we use this tracking app? And there was the question. Okay, or are we gonna be surveyed now? Wherever we go out of our house, and then this walking became a little bit. I think some kind of uncertain connotation in a way. So, and then I think in this sense, yes, we talk about intimacy.
And with the frequency of posting also, not just for you, but for example, from your overview as a person following the process of all the artists, how did you observe how different artists maybe had different ideas of their own rhythm of the diary, which was something that we were trying in the beginning to put like, okay, let's do it every day as a ritual, but then things changed also in this sense.
Yeah, I mean, we can, I think, then have a look at the diaries from some artists, and there you will see that some posted really every day for, I don't know, 2 months, or how much in total, I don't know, something like this. Indiara, for example, really every day, and Tiia also, and some artists were posting in the end for 1 month and in just once a week, but also because their postings were quite time consuming to produce. So it really depended on the concepts, how much time everyone wanted to dedicate to the postings. And so first we had the idea that everyone posts every day, but maybe everyone figured out that's not so easy. So because producing digital media every day, it's like some maybe felt already like influencers, like, you know, it's like, oh wow, we have to post every day, so that's the job, you know. Yeah. And we thought, okay, we have time for this, but in the end, it turned out that actually there was not so much time. Mm-hmm. So time was also a really interesting aspect in all of this, in this period. But I would suggest that we now look into the projects, because we have to.
Yeah, I think we can start, because we would like to show also the differences between the perspective of artists based on their geographical context, also based on this context of the time, since the crisis, let's call it like that, started in different areas, in different timings. So for example, people who were in Austria were posting more in March and April and June, but now we have collectives from Brazil who are posting only now. But this is one of actually the first collectives that joined us that we would like to talk about. It's Collective Lumen from Italy. They are a collective of documentary photographers who really had to change their practice and revisualize the events in the public space, which was mostly empty during the lockdown in Italy. So let's look at their statement.
Who has decided to join a YouTube channel dedicated to visual storytelling. Back in March 2020, we decided to join Copeland and to share his aim and philosophy.
On an island, people and sounds are almost the same. When we began to imagine Coquelands, we were locked up in our homes since a week. The coronavirus outbreak led the Italian government to take one of the hardest choices since the post-war period, a lockdown of the whole peninsula, an extended quarantine that involved us all. So we were used to telling socials and political events, but at that moment we found ourselves to tell empty streets, empty squares, closed shops. So all the logic of our visual storytelling was in crisis.
As a group of photographers that often share the physical space of ideas and creativity, we have found ourselves isolated, alone, divided, and artistically stuck into shooting the same pictures every day in a routine that was making all the days alike. Therefore, what became important, not only for us photographers, but for all those who would have to avoid physical contact in the forthcoming weeks, was to rediscover the use of words as a medium of daily scientific and emotional sharing.
In this way, our simple portrait of an immunodepressed revealed the drama of being a real hostage of this situation. A photo of an empty square became the square, which was at that point empty for a reason. In this way, also, a generally row in front of a grocery shop became meaningful. Not being able to do otherwise, during those weeks, we photographed our prison area, our island, those unusual gestures and collective behavior caused by the quarantine. Thank you so much for letting us share our project with you. Keep safe and greetings from Italy.
We are very happy that they could at least be here with us today with this video, and I suggest that we take a look at a few of their photos that they were posting during the lockdown. And as we can see, they were really and as they said, they had to transform their whole practice and to deal with new ideas of public space and what does it means, what does an event in public space actually mean during this whole process. So one of the things that I understood after seeing all the works after also a period of time is that what most of the artists were dealing with directly was this connection between the inside space and the outside space, where some artists were dealing more with this outside space that was left abandoned, but then some of them found more inspiration in their homes and in their daily realities that they couldn't leave. Some of them also decided to invite the outside space inside. So I suggest that we also talk about another approach which doesn't deal necessarily with the public space, but with this direct and intimate space that, for example, the artist Iosune and our colleague also in the production team chose as her angle of approach. So since you really decided to work with your direct surrounding, what could you discover through this documentary approach, and how did you rediscover your own intimate relationship with this space?
Yeah. So I have been thinking about this, like how the documentary approach brings into these situations, and I think it's maybe it helps seeing new things in the routine, in the daily routine. And so in this occasion, it was like more how do you say? Like it was more evident, like the new things, because it was like you were in a space recluded. So I also, in my own work, I really find helpful to see through a device, that it was the camera, because I'm used to like my eyes, no? So this is my gaze. But when you are seeing through a device that it's the camera, you can find new details and maybe that your eyes have assumed in a way. So the device makes them more evident also. And yeah, so my work was based on, it started as an exercise of as an exercise of observation in the inhabited space that it was my room. And it was a decision, like a kind of very easy decision, because I knew that I was going to be forced, I was going to be, like my range of attention was going to be
Narrowed.
yeah,
Yeah.
reduced. So it was like, okay, this is the only thing that I can do now. So I think that also it helped with the situation, because at least I had new ways of looking into a space. And yeah, I think that the question that kind of summarizes my work was that there? Like, because I was asking that question all the days, like, was that there? Is it new? I didn't see it like until now. So it was a very interesting exercise or work for me personally.
And also for me, it was interesting after seeing your work being posted, and then, for example, seeing Tia's work. It was almost like you were creating a dialogue, but without being aware of what the other person is doing. And somehow, it's interesting to see how us that study together in interface culture sometimes take very similar approaches, but that change, of course, through the mediums that we decide to work with. So yeah, this other approach that Tiia took also, it was dealing with her intimate space, but adding another layer on top, which means she was trying to invite the external space, so the outside world that was forbidden in a way. For her, she was trying to invite it inside of her room through a pinhole projection. And Tiia is right now in Finland, so she couldn't join us, but did we have a video from her as a statement that maybe we could just watch and see how it was from her angle? And then, of course, we can see one of her videos as well.
Hello, this is my project Interspaced. I was doing it mainly in pinhole room, and that gave the reflection from outside to inside to my private space. And this became somehow really magical place for me to build up daily, and somehow to hide away from the crazy outside world. And in pinhole room, the picture happens to come always upside down. What was going on also in the spring, the world was upside down and distorted. Also, I wanted to find some kind of dialogue between the outside world and inside world, and there were some really nice results, sometimes really unexpected. Example, I like this, the reflection on the notebook, and there is some laundry on the opposite side from the building on the notebook. It became the daily routine, and also I learned that every day I'm just doing one piece for the big puzzle that is now kind of ready. And also this my diary is just one big piece of the even bigger puzzle named Cocolands.
Tiia for sending us this contribution. And as we can see, these were the artists that were based in Linz, so they were based in Austria during the lockdown, and this is still this inner circle of us as friends that know each other and that were posting on the platform. But then we also had very interesting contributions from artists from other continents, such as Peru, countries such as Peru or Brazil. And also these were the artists that we didn't know personally, but that contacted us with the initiative to join the collective. So one of them was also Adriana, who is an artist from Peru that had quite also another angle of understanding her daily routine within the public space, but also adding a layer of not just rendering it through her own mind, but using machine learning and artificial intelligence as a way to reimagine her daily surroundings. And we also have a video from her and her statement and her work, so let's take a look.
Hi, my name is Adriana Miyaguzuku. I live in Lima, Peru, and I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the phone booth project, which was my diary contribution for the Cocolands project. I joined Cocolands later on while being in quarantine in Lima, Peru. The idea of having a diary work was a steady exercise for me to start grasping a sense of futurability, or at least for the project's sake. Like a game of probability, I started checking in on a phone booth that was nearby. Although I performed the same ritual, it felt different every time. I guess the outside world had never seemed so fascinating. The confrontation with the image of a solitary booth reminded me of our own isolation, as well as our vital urge for connection. The pandemic had actually reinforced this thought, as well as the idea of an ever-so-connected world. We have accustomed ourselves to interact and think of immaterial processes because not seeing is the new normal. The simple idea of a telephone booth is now a strange object in the public space, since they remind us of certain materiality to communication that just hasn't adjusted to our new, ever-so-vanishing present. I started leaving a material trace, a coin, to see if someone else bothered to look and take it. It was awesome to think of the idea of crossing paths with someone else now that everyone was confined and barely went out. This sense of chance, lost in our algorithmic automated world, was a very exciting experience as I started to generate a coin sequence. And as I reflected on the duality of concepts like physical, the virtual, the indoor-outdoor, private, public experiences, and traces, I went on and searched what traces of these phone booths were online. With the help of Google Street View, I found out that these public phones once had clouds on them as part of their publicity. I found it ironic how the idea of cloud computing and connectivity was being used directly on the phone booths as a marketing campaign. I created a dataset searching around Lima and then every corner in Peru to find as many of these clouds as I could. My diary work had shifted, changing daily walk for a daily online search. I started to feel like a machine trying to spot these phone clouds, as I call them. These clouds, they were clouds that didn't change. As I navigated through my virtual window, I came across the thought that there are so many things that seem stuck and with no foreseeable future here in Peru. The idea of progress and development is one to think of, especially when it is immediately linked to technology. As I looked upon the data set that I had been creating, I didn't want to hold on to the idea that there are no alternatives. I figured that we should encourage the call to imagine other futures, even if this means having a little help from machines. That's why the final part of this diary ends with new possibilities, clouds imagined by machines. Who knows, maybe some of these clouds are possible.
Thank you again for the contribution. And as we see this topic of the reinterpretation of the space and the direct surrounding continues, and since she also mentioned the idea of walks, that she turned these everyday walks into something more than that, which was more like communication between her and the machine and joining the imaginative process. Carla had another project that was dealing with walks and public space, but it was more interactive and it was inviting more people to join in. So could you just briefly tell us about your project and why you decided to do this approach, basically?
Yeah, so very quick because I already talked about it before. I felt first after having this other concept, so in my case it happened that I had another idea and it turned out that it didn't work for me because I don't know, I put a lot of stress on myself with the first concept, and I felt I had the urge to do something more ritualistic and also connected to the urge that I need to go out and I don't want to stay all the time at home because we had online classes, we had to spend many hours in front of our screens, and I was not allowed officially to go hiking, which was very bad for me also, so of course, and then I started to just having a walk like many other people. So that was then the idea to have these walking portraits, And I thought it would be nice to see other people walking and not always myself or my feet. Um, so I invited friends and family to send me their videos. Yeah, and at that time I was also reading a book about the philosophy of walking, and so this came together very well, and it was super interesting for me to see what is coming out of this. And yeah, and there were some kind of really nice poetic interactions.
Thank you. Yeah, we have to be more fast because in the end we have so many artists, and I don't want to leave anyone unrepresented, especially Indiara, because her work also continues this dialogue that we are talking about already, but she adds another layer of the attempt to communicate with her friends in Italy, since she's originally from Italy, and she does it through my daily view, through my daily window, and exploring this topic between the boring view that she has every day in her house, but also the life of her friends that she tries to integrate in this boring view. Can you just shortly tell us about your approach?
Yeah, actually, when the lockdown started also here in Austria, I was already overwhelmed from the situation that was ongoing in Italy, and all the time I was always in contact with family, friends, that they were really sharing their feelings with me and so on. And when I decided to contribute in Cocolands and to realize this project and to do a reflection on that, I said that it would be very interesting also to have this kind of statement of also other people, and so have also other reflection and also other perspective. And also I want somehow to reflect on my daily social interaction with the people that were locked down there, and so also to see how they were really spending their time in Italy, what they were doing actually, but also I want to share in this diary also my daily view that I was looking for, because yeah, actually also I start since the lockdown in Austria, I also started to lock myself at home, and I was like also a little bit afraid to go out actually, so I was okay, now I'm not get used anymore to go outside and explore the outside world, so yeah, and I have to force myself to see all the time the same boring view, because actually for me it was very sad and boring. So well, yeah, decided to integrate my personal perspective with also the personal perspective of my friends and family in Italy, and what about their feelings. And so I decided to combine videos and picture, and also actually I start to ask them, okay, I'm doing this project and I would like to realize this collective narrative of the experience of the lockdown. So I invite actually every day every person that I was in contact with to share with me whatever, like picture, sound, even text, so in order to realize this collective statement. So
Sorry, I have to take the microphone from you, but because we are running out of time, but I think it's very clear in the end that okay, now I heard that we have one question also from the audience, so okay, let's take the question and then we can maybe end. Yes.
So the question is, the project reminds me to an artistic survival exercise. So I wonder, will your project end when COVID-19 is under control?
Very good question that probably we also don't have an answer directly for when or what does it mean that COVID-19 is under control. So I think that we will remain being open until we realize that we said what we have to say with this project. So basically, since the beginning, we are spontaneously reacting to the everyday environment and situations that happen. So until it's very uncertain what will happen next, so we will stay in this state of openness. It doesn't necessarily have to be a project that deals only with this very extreme idea of COVID-19 is under control or not, because I think it's more about this transition in general, the transition from maybe even one system to another that we are witnessing right now, which would be my hope. And also I think it's an interesting word, this survival, artistic survival, since it was one of the initial statements that we had with this project, was how to survive our everyday life as artists when the entire world is changing, and maybe when the entire world doesn't need the art to survive, but we want to show that yes, we still need it. And yeah, that I'm very happy that we got this question from the audience.
I would like to thank you so much, and all your contributors online with their beautiful movies, for the oh now I have too many things in my hand. Okay, but for the audience who in the Etherpad there is also the URL for the Cocolands website, and when you are here in Linz, please don't forget to visit and drop by at the Art University to experience the project and meet some of the artists who are also present. So a big hand for all the ladies here and their collaborators. Thank you. We will continue in a couple of minutes with our next presentation. Digitalis, the platform where artists and students and researchers share their work. We are live from the Art University in Linz. And I have a new guest who will present her work. Her name is Vicky Michalopoulou from the University Paris 8. And she will be presenting her work later today, I believe 5:45. She will be doing her performance, and right now she will talk about her project, Happy 365. But before we start, and I give the floor to Vicky, I would like to invite people who are online to share their questions for Vicky via the link on the streaming page. Okay, Vicky, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this invitation here. I'm so grateful. Well, my performance is called Happy 365. It's an interactive multimedia performance. It was part of my master thesis for University Paris 8. The story of this performance, first of all, is based on Samuel Beckett's theatrical play Happy Days, where the basic characters are Winnie, the woman, and Willie, the man. They're trying to communicate. Their communication is rather difficult. Winnie in Samuel Beckett's play is buried in the ground and she cannot move. And Willie is far away and barely not paying that much attention to Winnie. So in my performance I thought that I would like to present Winnie as being trapped in the cyber world, waiting for Willie's contact, communication, and Willie surfing the net, and their communication is via internet. So Winnie is waiting for Willie's communication. Extra elements, as far as dramaturgy is concerned, is that for Samuel Beckett, words resonate. This is very important. And also a key element for this theatrical play is that Winnie is waiting for the right moment to sing her song. So the performance took place on Facebook, on social media, and it was live streaming. Why and how did I end up to this concept? Well, during this coronavirus confinement, I was in my room, in the residence of the university, doing my master thesis, and I had something completely different in my mind, and suddenly I saw that theater could not be as it was. All the theaters were closed, and suddenly a lot of live streaming of recorded performances of the past were streamed. So I thought, why not creating a live streaming performance, not of the past, but on now. So the concept is Winnie, the performer, and Willie are the viewers, the spectators, the ones that interact with me. I just use Unity, Super Collider, and digital sounds, and of course live streaming platforms. How could the viewers interact? They could comment on the live streaming video of Facebook. Two types of comments. They could type one word that is important for them, or send a URL link of a website. They could comment as much as they wanted. Here we can see the flow of it. Okay, it's a bit complicated, but the point is that we have Unity and Super Collider, the basic platforms, digital media. Here we have the projection, and I have prepared a key. The keyboard is transformed to a musical instrument. So every time we type a word, that is the comment of the viewers, sound is produced, and it is every time different. So if they send a link, we go to the live web browser of Unity, and if we send a word, we go to the text box, and whoop, music is produced. Here is the setup. We can see the projection. Here is the web live browsing, and the text box. And here is the man that handles everything and writes here the words. This is the result, what the viewers can see. Here is the live web browsing window, and here is a text box. Here are their comments, and as you can see, for example, hope is projected on me. For example, a link is sent, and we can have this link as a bug phone. Yeah. Here is participants' input at a glance. Some very important words for them: just justice, isolation, harmony, health, truth, hope, love, embrace. That's it. So I'm ready for your questions.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. It's fantastic and very impressive. I'm just looking at our Etherpads, but I don't have questions online, so we can forget about that.
Okay.
But I have a question for you, as you are working with input from your audience.
Yeah.
And I'm just very curious, what does that mean for you as a performer developing your work? Is it only a single instance where you have inputs, so they are participating, or does it also help you develop new versions of the work?
Of course. I mean, everything we do as artists is to communicate with the world, with people. So if I have a feedback for them, or if I see that something works better, I try to go to this path. For now, everything worked well. They really liked the way that they could send the comments and that they were transformed on my body.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And if I understood it correctly, you started the whole process already before the lockdown. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
And did that change? Did the whole COVID-19 situation change the way you had to deal with developing your work?
Yeah, totally. I had created a completely different performance that was like an exhibition that people could navigate freely and touch objects that resonated via Arduino and things like that. But the coronavirus couldn't let me use common objects and inviting people to navigate all together in a closed space. So all this performance was created like 1 month after the start of the lockdown.
And over the last couple of days, I heard both negative and frustrating stories, but also a lot of interesting new insights from people who were confronted with this lockdown and the fact that they had to change their work dramatically. How did that appear to you?
In fact, I liked it. Because
that's very honest, fantastic. Yeah.
Because I mean, when you don't have a choice of something, you have to go for it. Go and hold by the hand reality and walk together. So it was frustrating at the beginning that everything changed, but then I said, okay, new options. We have new options, so why not take them, use them? So my mind started working differently, and after absorbing reality, I tried to transform the whole concept to this one. So I think everything that is real, when you follow reality and you're open to new things without fear and without frustration, there are always solutions to things.
Wow. That's a good one. That's a beautiful line to close down.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. And for the audience, don't forget to come down to our gallery performances tonight, and 5:45, Vicky will be performing. And a big hand and thank you so much
Thank
for
you so
sharing
much.
your ideas.
Thank you.
Welcome back at Agora Digitalis, the stage where artists, researchers and students can share their work and their research. We are live from the Art University in Linz, and this afternoon we have some special guests from our partner universities, and we will start with Artemis Gryllaki from the Piet Zwart Institute in Rotterdam. And before I give the floor to Artemis, I also invite the audience to share questions for her in the Etherpad. You can follow the link on the streaming page, and Artemis will tell us all about her project. So the floor is yours.
Hi everyone, greetings from Rotterdam. First of all, thanks a lot for the invitation. I'll share my screen. Today I will talk to you about my graduation project, which is called Sister Papyri Magicae, and I developed it during the master course of experimental publishing program of the Piet Zwart Institute. It focuses in a research on feminist practices within tech and hacker culture. In this subject, I was interested in how political activists and communities are able to create their own channels of communication and publishing, mostly online, and achieve at least partly some technological autonomy. While I wanted to contribute to grassroots communities in that way, but personally being a tech amateur, I tried to find spaces where I could acquire technical skills. So I learned about hackerspaces, which are basically open technology spaces where people gather to hack, tinker with technology and socialize, and they seemed like what I was looking for, especially because they're also horizontal and community-based. However, when I asked some of my friends who tried to attend hackerspaces in the past, coming mostly from art backgrounds, they discouraged me from joining because they described them as very male-dominated, massively technocentric, and hard to fit in if you're not a non-expert, and especially as a woman. So last summer, while I was still looking for such spaces, I participated for the first time in an inclusive hacker event, which is called the Eclectic Tech Carnival, where feminists critically explore and develop everyday skills and information technologies in the context of free software and open hardware movements. So I was really interested to participate there, and I found particularly exciting the combination of feminism and hacker culture in one event, because I didn't hear of that before. So the diverse tutorials, discussions, and workshops, but also performances of the ETC, inspired me to further study similar practices. So with my project, I started researching the urgencies and potential of feminist hacker initiatives like ETC. I wanted to unfold the issue of gender exclusions in male-dominated tech environments and to document, discuss, and activate a variety of feminist practices that respond to this phenomenon. So at first, I started to dive into existing communities and explore, let's say, different feminist practices. For example, I joined the ETC, also the Sister Server project, and also with my colleague Angeliki Diakrousi, we initiated a series of feminist hack meetings in a space in Rotterdam, which is called Varia. So I will not go through them in detail, but in general, they included workshops and sharing stories, political discussions around technology and feminism, some skill sharing and prototyping, but also some artistic experiments such as podcasts and streaming. So in my mind at the beginning, I was trying to continue this series of meetings, but then with COVID, it was hard. So I also came to the question, how can I accumulate and document what I learned, the stories that I heard, and the experience and the practices that I have experienced. I decided to create my own growing archive as a collection of incidents of exclusion in tech spaces, but also the feminist practices that respond and intervene to such spaces. I chose to develop a wiki, which is a default archiving digital tool, especially because of its possibility for collective contributions and editing. So hopefully, I thought that it would be great if this archive could be enriched from input with other individuals and communities in the future. The central idea of documenting incidents of sexism in the geekdom helps to legitimize but also to make exclusions visible. It is a practice that creates collective memory and produces counter-narratives that impact how excluded people and members of a community perceive themselves. So in order to approach a wider audience for this thematic, especially people who don't have any knowledge on this subject or don't feel comfortable to contribute and use a wiki, I decided to add an extra layer to this archive and create a playful way to navigate it. That brought me to the idea of the website Sister Papiri Magike. I decided to embrace and use one of the responses that we got in one of our initiatives, that we as feminists are not making real, valuable technological projects, but what we do looks more like pagan witchcraft. So that was supposed to undermine our project, but I thought that this was a beautiful identity to appropriate and turn it into a playful context to communicate my message. The fictional context of magic could provide a game-like atmosphere to my website, my project, and also a design. Also, I thought that witchcraft is an ever-present theme in the tech culture and proposes that technology has a source of magical power that one can harness for their own agency and empowerment. So my website follows a choose your adventure format. And while you navigate, you receive several quests. So these blue pages, when you arrive here, is the quest pages, or I call them papyrus or cards. And they describe several situations. For example, an incident of gender exclusion or an incident of sexism that is also documented in the wiki. Here, these incidents are turned into challenges for you to choose what you would do, like consider what you would do in this situation. This method is used so the visitor could realize how hard it is to take action if you are under these circumstances and put you, let's say, in the shoes of people who have had this experience. At least that was what I was hoping for. So here you have to choose how to navigate and continue. And depending on your choice, you uncover several paths. So this very basic but early web magic, I could say, of hyperlinks will direct you in information about a feminist hacker project, that you can hear an interview, for example, or see a summary. Sometimes you're directed in an editing page of a wiki where you can write your own version of a story. And or you can hear some of our little performances or descriptions of past events. Sometimes also you're directed outside of my project to see or look at relevant sister projects. For example, here you are almost induced to subscribe in a real feminist mailing list. So at this point, I would invite you to have a look at this website and take your time to immerse in this labyrinth of hyperlinks and discover several paths. Thanks for your attention.
I'm just looking
Thank you
at
so
the
much.
time, and we have 37 seconds left and one question. So if you can briefly answer the question, how was the decision process in the design? Readability is a bit difficult. So the decision process, can you tell something about that?
For the website, I can imagine, because at first I started from the wiki, let's say, to just write down the stories and everything. But then I wanted to make this design, let's say, of the website. So it started very much by crafting and trying out things. So I was thinking of what this diary, what this choose your adventure thing could look like. So I was making my own font, and from crafting paper, then I was tracing it in Inkscape to make it a vector, and then from there I was trying to create, let's say, this card that I was also wanted to print, but in the end it didn't happen. I mean, maybe in the how you call it, in the when I shared my screen, it didn't show very well. But actually, if you go to the website, these cards, if you click them, they can be a bit bigger, so you can read it more. So I'm not sure about this readability that you're talking about. Maybe it was the font or the size, but in general, they can be bigger.
That's we can just very ultra briefly 1 second spend to the last question. Hi Artemis, somebody you know. How are you planning to continue your project from now on?
Yes, so I don't think that was like a finished, complete project. So, for example, yeah, readability could be improved, as I understood. But for me, the main reason to make this project is to try to be a more active contributor from now on. So it was like to document my experience and what I learned. And now we are trying to organize, let's say, this year online or offline. We'll see how with the COVID goes. Some meetings to experiment with different things. For example, radio with feminism or feminist servers, and other kinds of meetings that we're trying to do in Rotterdam here, but also to connect with people online. So it was like a starting point mostly, and not like a finished project. That was the end. It was the start, basically.
So keep on the good work, and I also want to inform you that there is FEM meetings taking place in Ars Electronica Festival online the coming days, so you might be interested to join them. And a big hand, and Artemis, thank you so much and for joining us. Bye bye. Thank you. Digitalis, the platform where artists, students and researchers share their work. We're live from the University of the Arts and Design in Linz. And I'm welcoming our next guest. That's Rita Graça from Piet Zwart Institute in Rotterdam. And she will give a short presentation. And if you're watching us online and you have any question, please use the link on our streaming page to include your question in the notepad for Rita. So Rita, please unmute yourself and the floor is yours. Thank you.
So yes, I'm Rita and I'm a designer creating and researching content for the web. And today I'm going to present to you my graduation work that I did in the Piet Zwart Institute website. So I think it's better to turn off the camera just for a little bit. Okay. Networks of care. And it all started with a deep curiosity and eagerness to find ways to handle online hate. Online spaces are filled with hate is not a novelty, but a commonplace at this point. To continue to increase and improve, always trying to stay as progressive as possible. That I focus my work. Today I would like to talk with you not about hate, but about caring, and about creating a sense of community online. I began to be especially interested in codes of conduct, all that enthusiasm. So codes of conduct are guidelines that aim for comfortable interactions between the members. They set expectations for users, put in evidence the values of a community, making explicit which behaviors are allowed or discouraged, and if we are lucky, possibly decreasing unwanted hate. When I was collecting and analyzing different codes of conduct, there was a recurring sentence in the document, the be excellent to each other. And it's kind, but in the context of a code of conduct, what does it mean to be excellent? Do we all have the same standards of excellence? Does this rule work? And if you're wondering where this comes from, it actually comes from a movie. I think it's very funny how this sentence spread through so many art and tech communities, but I argue that writing only this as your code of conduct is not enough. So when I'm referring to codes of conduct, I'm not only considering the potential of text, but the labor-intensive routines that are created around the code that involve the community. So write the guidelines, to manage reports, to moderate, to document, to listen, to grant support. So to better understand and highlight all this care work, I created a field guide. And I'm going now to the website as I think it's more interesting to actually see it. Okay, so what you're looking at now is hosted on a Raspberry Pi that I have at home. It uses MediaWiki software to organize the content. The field guide is divided into 3 parts. So the archiving, the networking, and linking. And I'll start with this cluster for archiving. Okay, this is a cluster for archiving to collect and annotate codes of conduct, creating a collection that is possible to browse, dissect, and analyze. In this main page, you can filter by tags. For example, you can select pages with annotations. And what are the annotations? So it's part of my research to understand the structure of these documents. These are all the documents that I collected so far. And I'll open the Geek Feminism. Yeah, here you can see the annotations. So the Geek Feminism Code of Conduct is an example of a page with a lot of connections. So this means a lot of other codes refer to this one. Their anti-harassment policy, published in 2010, was adopted by a lot of companies, from the Python Software Foundation to the Linux Foundation. So it's very common actually to see documents or communities borrowing from each other and sharing knowledge. And you can explore all these later if you want. I want to go now to the second part of the field guide, which is indeed focused on networking. So the intention behind networking was to reach out to different people involved with community guidelines and understand their motivations. I interviewed and documented the work of moderators, writers of codes of conduct, facilitators, community members, and networks administrators. And in some cases, I recorded the meetings. In others, the conversations happened through email, social media, video chats, private messages, and the extremely different formats promote diversity in the collection and were very fun to work with. The pages are also associated with information about the format, language, and context. So for example, here I talk with Lydia, the co-writer of the Code of Conduct for Varia, a place in Rotterdam. In this conversation, the main question was, what happens after writing a code of conduct? How can you share the text, but actually use it? So each page that you can see networking opens up more questions and conversations through interviews. And the third and last part of the field guide is linking. Because frequently the people I interviewed or the documents are archived shared other inspiring work. So following the concept of a network, it only made sense to continuously link these resources. And also in this category, I'm adding small projects and presentations that I worked on while developing the networks of care, which allowed me to experiment concepts and ideas for the main project. And this is the case of the Voice of Conduct, which actually I did with Artemis that was presenting her work just before me. And this was some vocal recordings that, again, I invite you to see everything later. So yeah, again, I invite you to explore all the conversations and documents and get lost in all the links. Because the way we interact with each other and promote better online communities will always be something that we can improve and that I'll be very happy to look at. I just want you to leave you with my website where some contacts information there, and also, of course, the whole archive for you to browse and see. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a very comprehensive and visually appealing presentation. There you go. There you're back again. And we have several questions. Nice to have participating online audiences. I will read aloud the questions. The first one is, you said that the website is running in a Raspberry Pi at home. How many people can navigate the website at the same time? Is it possible through a domestic connection?
Yeah, actually, it's on the Raspberry Pi at home, but it's actually also port forwarding to a server in my university. So hopefully it can accommodate a few people. I don't want to know how many, honestly, but hopefully you can go there and see everything, and it will be fine.
That's reassuring, so people can enjoy your project there. Another question. I'm curious about the interviews and the networking part. Was it easy to reach out to these people?
Yeah, it was definitely hard work to document and to communicate to the people that I wanted. But actually, some people were very open and some communities very open. And my work started on Mastodon, which is a decentralized and open source social media. And actually, this kind of communities really welcome and encourage community guidelines and codes of conduct. So they were amazing, and it was great to actually see the different perspectives, why they were doing this. And this is where my work started and finished, because the community was actually very, very helpful.
Thank you. And I also included in our Etherpad a URL and a short description of a project of one of our students here at Interface Cultures. It's the work of Mario Romera. His work is called Proof of Consensus, and I see a lot of interesting references for you in his work. So the URL is in the Etherpad, and you might want to check it out. Maybe you can exchange ideas with him. And our little alarm was ringing, so I have to close down. thank you for joining us. It was a pleasure having you here, and thanks to the audience online for the nice questions. And we will take a short break now, and we will be back in a little while. Thank you. Bye-bye.